Glory be, mercy me. We've done it yet again. We made it. We made it. Holy cow, what a weekend I had, man. What a weekend I had. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. I hope you all spent time with friends and family. I hope you all knew. I hope you all at least had a fucking day off. Boy, howdy. Christmas Day was literally the first day I've actually had off in months and months. If I'm not doing this channel, I'm doing capitalism, and if I'm not doing this capitalism, I'm doing this channel. And back and forth we go. And so on the 25th, I was able to go over to a friend's house, spend a little bit of time with them. We played some D&D, some Dungeons and Dragons. That's right, guys. I played Dungeons and Dragons, the Devil's Game. And it was so nice. It was so nice. Bro, you're going live at the same time as Jimmy. Jimmy Dore? All right. Nothing much I could do about that. This is the time slot that I go live at, so if other people are going to go live, such is life. Such is life. I figure people are going to tune in here because I'm the Canadian perspective. And also, I don't know. I actually like Jimmy Dore. I can't. He's going off in interesting places, but I like him all the same. He was the guy who really broke the Russiagate shit. Like, not broke it, but he was the guy that was really pounding on the pulpit for the Russiagate stuff. Anyway. Can't always be avoided. You're always gonna go live at on top of somebody, right? And Jimmy Dore only goes live, I think, once a week anyway. I think maybe he goes. I think he goes once a week, and then on Saturdays as well he goes. So, hey man, I don't mind. You're always going to be on somebody else's time slot, and as long as I remain consistent, right? As long as I remain consistent, some days will be lower, some days will be higher. That's life. So Saturday, beautiful day, spent some day, played D&D with people, absolutely lovely. Sunday, watched the film Don't Look Up. If you have not seen this film, I did today's video about Don't Look Up. This is now part of what I consider like modern cinematic must-watches, right? I think now I'll say four. I think there's four pieces of media that you must watch that have come out of sort of the post-corporate coup d'etat. I need to find a better way of saying this, but since America has turned into an oligarchy, it's taken media a long time to sort of catch up with that reality and the reality of what that means and how it's structured and who is actually in charge and what the society actually looks like. You can see the reality of this resistance to accepting the new reality in figures like The Simpsons, right? The Simpsons are exactly as they always were, right? A single wage earner with a wife, 3 kids, a car, and a house simply doesn't exist in modern America, right? That if you are still living that existence, you are a dying breed. Homer Simpson is no longer an everyman. He is part of a dwindling elite, and yet he's consistently put forward to us as if he is an everyman experiencing the everyman struggles. This is why The Simpsons have become incoherent, and their storytelling has fallen into what I call Family Guyism, which is just a form of absurdism, just nonsense, right? Miss you too, Miranda. Good to see you. Glad you're doing well out there. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, Miranda. I don't know if I said hi to you, Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Happy Monday to you. And so, yeah, Homer is a boomer, exactly, right? But he isn't presented that way. He never aged. So he's presented to us as if he's a millennial. I'm the same age as Homer Simpson, right? And so it's become incoherent. And most media is like that. A show like Modern Family, for example, is completely incoherent. I don't recognize any of the characters on the show. They seem to be a relic of a bygone era. right? Anytime they admit that there is like reality exists and people are living in a reality, it's in very small scale sort of ways, very simple ways that are non-threatening, right? Yeah, Homer probably supported Biden, exactly. And like so now we're entering a phase of media storytelling that's actually beginning to acknowledge reality as real. It started, the true seminal turning point was the film Parasite. That the film Parasite was released, that's number one. The film Parasite was released as a South Korean film. For whatever reason, the South Koreans seem to be able to actually produce anti-capitalist television and have it be actually taken seriously. And Parasite was sort of the first shot across the bow. Then I say that Joker is in this grouping because it was the only superhero film that actually had anything meaningful to say. And it took a character who at the time had no origin story and was well beloved by the superhero genre in the first place, Joker, and actually told a poignant, powerful story about him that said something very serious about the society that generated him. It wasn't just he fell into a vat of chemicals and went crazy. It was that the society will generate Jokers. That a figure like the Joker in this society is an inevitability. That we create Jokers. Squid Game is number 3. Squid Game is a much watch, right? Like it absolutely just lays out the desperation of capitalism and presents a ruthless society that is ruled by psychopaths, right? And now Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up is loaded with all of the stuff that I have been talking about on this channel. It literally, in my view, when I watched Don't Look Up, I genuinely felt like I was in the writer's room saying to the people who are writing this film, like, yeah, these people are psychopaths, right? Like, all the stuff that I say on this channel, everything. They don't care about climate crisis. They don't care. They care about money for themselves and power for themselves. They are rapacious, unrepenting psychopaths, incapable of seeing anything beyond their own nose. They don't care about what is real. They don't care about reality. They care about their own arrogance and their own fantasies. That's what they care about. And they're willing to sacrifice the entire human species in order to pursue these delusional fantasies that they have built in their brains. Like, and Don't Look Up, in my view, is just laying it right out. My only critique for Don't Look Up, and this is kind of spoilery, so maybe cover your ears for 10 seconds. They never surround the halls of power in any significant way. It's just never presented as an option. And I understand why the film never presents that, because there are limits to even people like Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, right? You can't create a film that is essentially about American politics and say that the solution to what is going on is to surround the halls of power and expect that film to be released or taken seriously. Or even if it is released, it will thoroughly be ignored. At this stage in the game, if the Oscars do not declare this movie, Don't Look Up, their best picture, then I don't understand what the Oscars are for. I don't understand what they're doing. I don't understand the point. It is just a wank, then. Like, the message that is carried in Don't Look Up is the most important message that has come out of American media, perhaps ever. And that's not an overstatement. That we are in a moment here, right now, where there is a looming existential threat that we know about. It is predictable. We see it. There is a timeline. We understand it's coming. And we're not doing anything to prevent it because there is a small cabal of psychopathic billionaires who are doing everything they can to stand in the way for money. Just for money. And the result of it will be the destruction of the civilization. It's exactly the story that is told in Don't Look Up. Beat for beat, line for line, everything I have seen our society do is in the movie Don't Look Up. And all of the anxiety and frustration that exists in the real world exists in that film and is expressed by the characters in that film. It's an important film as well because it's finally a film that's coming out and actually acknowledging that reality is real, that and powerfully shows that you don't need to be alone, that you are not alone in this constant, persistent struggle against your own society. As your society fades into delusion, as your society denies the existence of reality directly in front of your face, as your society perpetually attempts to gaslight and individualize these issues and convince you that it's all up to you or it's all in your head or you're blowing it out of proportion. Well, here comes a film that says, no, this is real. It is happening. You are not alone. There are powerful people with big voices in the conversation who you can look to, who you can grab a hold to, and stand with in solidarity and believe that the narrative of Don't Look Up is happening today. It is unfolding right now. And are you just going to sit around and wait for the comet to hit? So far the answer is yes. I won't. Hi Dan, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Matthias, you as well. Imagine the aliens that will stumble upon this planet only to find a bunch of space junk McDonald's signs floating around. They'd probably just assume this McDonald fellow must be their god. It makes sense. Makes sense that it would be led by a clown, right? Makes total sense. Yeah, their leader was a clown. A clownish species. Accurate. Accurate. Okay, and then shifting gears, and then today, I sat down with... I'm not going to tell you too much of the details of this because a lot of this is... You know what? I'm going to push this aside. There's an interesting story going on. It involves Toronto City Housing, a meth lab, and an old woman who's being ignored by the community. I need to verify some facts and things, because it is possible that we're just looking at dementia. That's possible. But that could be a very interesting story, should it bear any fruit. I'll keep you apprised. I don't want to give you any more details than that, because I don't want to report something inaccurately without actually verifying it. I've gotten tricked by that before. But that's what I did today. So last 3 days have just been like... Rolling, rolling, rolling. Get this puppy rolling, roll high. All right. Moving on. Let's pick today's number, guys. Today's number, what are we doing? I'm going big. I'm going with a 10. I feel like it's a 10 today. Today's a 10.
Here we go for today's number.
The great and illustrious David Lynch.
December 27, 2021. 10 balls.
10 balls.
Each ball has a number.
We got an 8 from Aziel. Good to see you, bud.
Numbers 1 through 10.
Numbers 1 through 10.
Swirl the numbers.
Absolute favorite part. Hey, Nova Scotia, how you doing, bud?
Pick a number.
Are we only got 2 numbers? We only have 3 numbers? 7 from Ruth. Is anybody going to get it?
Today's number is 7.
7. That's you, Ruth. That's you. Ding, ding, ding. Ruth came in with the 7. And then I flip this guy. All right, it's a 7. And then I pull out the old book and I play number 7. Lucky number 7. What's number 7? Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Jared in a little bit late with a 7. We'll say you got it, Jared. We'll say you got it. With the lag and everything, why not? All right. Suited tobacco, sold a package of lies, spun their stories and promised the skies. Now they're robbing us in front of our eyes. They get off watching your children crying. The ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Raise the banners, take up the cause. Suicidal nations don't have any laws. Lift up your heads and pull out your claws. Watch what happens when your apathy thaws. 'Cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Kill these fascists, break all their bones. Take everything away, don't leave them alone. Bury them beneath a mountain of stone. They're evil, we won't forgive or condone. 'Cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Won't go down without a fight. Yeah! That's kick-ass tune, dude. That's kick-ass tune. Leonardo DiCaprio, if you're out there, my music would sound really great in your movies. Like, if you're going to make another movie along the lines of Don't Look Up, I got a whole slew of these where you could be like a revolutionary figure actually doing something about it. Right? Like, I mean, obviously you're doing something about it. You're making fucking, like, motion pictures about it. Yeah, okay. You better be careful, though, Leonardo DiCaprio. They banished Charlie Chaplin. They banished Charlie Chaplin. They'll banish you. Right? They will. They will. They'll find a way. Like, there's a reason why the Academy did not want to give an award to Leonardo DiCaprio. He was a 5-time nominee. He was nominated 5 times before they finally gave it to him, right? And the reason why? Because now he can go off and say whatever he wants and do whatever he wants, and he's an Academy Award winner, right? So they actually have to, like, oh yeah, we can't just, like, not pay attention to this guy. Like, we've already tied our wagon to him, right? The very, like, literally, it's like, thank you for the award. Psychopaths are gonna burn down the planet. And I'm just like, yeah, I get it. I get why they took the time to not actually, like, give Leonardo DiCaprio this thing. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes from here. In my view, if this movie does not get Best Picture, then the whole Academy is fraudulent as far as I'm concerned. Like, if there is a category for Best Picture, it goes to this film. And if it doesn't, the whole thing is completely fraudulent. Thank you, Dan. Good tune. I got a whole book of them. So, on request, on demand. All right. Moving on. Just a quick one from Richard D. Wolff. People once thought slavery was part of human nature and would last forever. They once thought the same about feudalism and monarchy. Imagine, some people today think that about capitalism. Richard Wolff, if you don't know, like, if you're looking for good lectures, he runs a show called, I forget the name of it. You'll find him, honestly. But he does a monthly update where he talks about a piece of news from the economics perspective. He is actually literate in the field of economics, which is nice. He actually reads the works and pays attention to them. And near as I can tell, he's completely accurate in everything that he says, right? That the inaccuracies such that they exist are always minor things off on the sides that can be clarified, right? Richard D. Wolff, seek him out, find him. You will find an excellent, excellent source and an excellent, excellent voice. He is the premier Marxist economist in North America, certainly. Certainly. So, this is actually is a really important article that has come out of the CBC. Now, yeah, Michael Hudson, absolutely another good economics person. Michael Hudson has experienced a lot of being pushed off into the fringes. That if Michael Hudson had shown up even 5 years later, he could have done what Richard Wolff did. Richard Wolff gets connected to YouTube and becomes like YouTube famous, right? And manages to connect with a series of churches where he gives a series of lectures every month, and is mainly supported through donation, right? So even if YouTube decides to shut him down, which we'll see, even if they do that, he still has, he's gained a following that supports him. Michael Hudson never found that following. And so you only ever find Michael Hudson in fringe places, right? He always pops up in fringe places, but also a very good voice to point to. Thanks, Nova Scotia Commie. He's the first economist to really call the financial system in North America a parasite, that it's parasiticized the system. And that's accurate. Like, the financial system in America is worthless. It provides nothing of value, and yet it's the thing we're all supposed to care about. Just take your money and make more money with it. It's like, okay, but that's not productive. That's not how you actually build a society. But that's most of our economy now. Okay, the reason why this article is so important coming out of the CBC is state-run or state-run media. So that means it will always defer to the current administration, right? That the CBC, while people have accused it for having a liberal bias, I always say that, well, reality always tends to have a liberal bias. Have you ever noticed that reality seems to have a leftist bias, right? Oh, reality keeps aligning itself with what leftists think. Isn't that interesting? So if all you do is report on the facts, then you're reporting with a leftist bias. But this is coming out, and I am going to read this fully. So the CBC is really laying it out, is the reason why this is important. It's a no bullshit document that is really ringing the bell about how important this is. But because it's state-run and because the current administration is the liberals, it can't get to the logical conclusion, which is that these liberals are fucking losers. Complete and total aggressive losers. But we'll talk about that. Canada wasn't prepared for natural disasters in 2021. The next year threatens a repeat. Ottawa plans to release first national climate adaptation strategy by end of 2022. Right, I'm sure it'll be serious too. After a year that saw deadly heat domes, massive wildfires, and historic flooding, Ottawa is being pressed to do more to help Canadians prepare for the effects of an increasingly volatile and dangerous climate. So notice, right? It's not Ottawa is being pressed to do more to prevent climate change, right? It's about preparing for the effects of climate change. That's what's happening now, right? We're not going to try to stop the comet from hitting Earth. We're going to accept that the comet is hitting Earth, and we're going to do everything we can to make it better for when the comet hits Earth. Few Canadian cities know the price of climate change better than Kamloops, BC, which experienced temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius for nearly a full week this summer, and not long after, massive wildfires that put hundreds of residents under evacuation notices. Months later, Kamloops Mayor Ken Christian reflected on his city's stressful year and the lack of preparation in infrastructure he believes aggravated the damage caused by the heat and fires. I think what's really missing is that the whole support for local infrastructure, and in particular, some of the protective infrastructure, Christian told CBC News. We were not as prepared as we needed to be, and we look to both the provincial and the federal government. According to a 2019 report, often cited by the federal government, Canada's climate is warming 2 times faster than the global average, 3 times faster in the north. The rapidly changing climate is acknowledged, in the words of one government report, to be increasing the frequency, intensity, and duration of extreme events like heat waves, wildfires, and floods. The trend is expected to continue for several decades, even if climate warping emissions are reduced globally. To better cope with the effects of climate change, Ottawa plans in 2022 to finalize its National Adaptation Strategy, an overarching set of plans and procedures to improve Canada's climate resilience. So don't stop anything, just get ready for the comet to hit. As climate impacts continue to rise, the government recognizes a more ambitious, strategic, and collaborative approach is required to adapt and build resilience to the changing climate, said a spokesperson for Environment and Climate Change Canada in an email. Remember, we are increasing emissions and we are still fully subsidizing the oil and gas sector here in Canada. Our Liberal government are complete and total losers who are preparing us for a comet to hit us. They are doing nothing to prevent it. The government started work on the plan in the spring of 2021 and is scheduled to release the final report in the fall of 2022. Paul Kovacs, founder and executive director of the Institute for Catastrophic Loss Reduction at Western University, said the disasters of 2021 demonstrated the urgent need for a stronger climate plan. In the current year, we have seen the best and the worst of what Canadian policy does in terms of dealing with disasters, Kovacs told CBC News. While he said Canada has become adept at responding to emergencies as they happen, more must be done to prevent disasters and help communities recover from them. BC Premier John Horgan described his province's fall flooding disaster as a once every 500 years event, but Kovacs said equally extreme floods, heat, fires, tornadoes, and hurricanes should be expected in the coming years. These will be enormously bigger than anything we've experienced in the past when they do occur, he said. Christian's wish list of climate projects and infrastructure upgrades for Kamloops is a long one. It includes new emergency centers to protect residents during periods of extreme weather or poor air quality, more protective dikes, and better wildlife protection. In 2018, the federal government created a disaster mitigation and adaptation fund, now backed by $3.375 billion. Christian said federal money to pay for major projects has not yet arrived in his city. We're too busy responding to natural disasters to actually do planning and exercises and logistics, Christian said. Coastal communities also need more protection. A report released this month by the Intact Centre on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo found that Canada lacks a national system to assess risks in coastal areas. The report called on the federal government to fund more natural infrastructure projects, such as stabilizing cliffs and restoring wetlands, to protect communities from rising sea levels. So here, we have to do more, right? At least there's one voice in the article saying we've got to do more to prevent this, right? But the reality is that because our system has gone completely psychopathic, because our political class has been completely bought by a group of narcissistic psychopaths who will put their own interests ahead of base human survival and reason, any money that gets funneled into projects to actually do something to mitigate these disasters will find themselves in the giant pile of gold. that rests in offshore accounts. That is how capitalism has structured itself. That is how the system actually works. That we can't respond rationally to these crises. It's impossible because a psychopathic billionaire class has bribed politicians in order to funnel any resources directly to the psychopath billionaire class. And it doesn't matter who we elect, because that process will always continue itself. And the psychopath class will always believe that it can just get on a spaceship and escape. We'll just go off to Mars, or we'll go into the bunker that we've already built for such an occasion, right? This false sense of arrogant supremacy that they dwell upon, where they retreat into literal fantasy worlds. Like, the level of delusion that is in front of us has never been achieved in human history. Like, the cultures that were committing like ritual sacrifice and worshiping gods were less delusional than we are right now. Because at least they didn't have the information, right? At least they were operating in just like, what the fuck is going on? We know what's happening. We know what to do about it. We know exactly what we should be doing. And instead of actually pursuing that path, we're literally listening to the beneficiaries of our destruction as they lie directly to our faces, telling us essentially, don't look up. We're an embarrassment. We're an embarrassment of a people. No other people in the history of mankind will be looked on with the scorn that we're looked upon. It's disgraceful. Figures like Justin Trudeau and Stephen Harper, their names will be spat out along with Hitler. They are gross figures, detestable, evil people who are literally lying to our faces, saying things like, yeah, we'll be net zero by 2050, while increasing emissions 30%. It's a total fucking joke. You have to be a total loser to actually believe it and to actually take it seriously. And guess what? This is who we vote for. We all go to the ballot box. Liberal, check. Yep, they're doing a good job, for sure. This embarrassing group of total fucking losers. Every single one of them. A fraud, a liar, and a loser. Lying to your face every time they open their mouth. And the only reason they're able to float by is because people cannot believe the scale of the lies that they're willing to tell. People refuse to acknowledge that these people are complete frauds and liars. They are lying directly to your face. And is it going to take... This whole article is about Kamloops, right? You know why this article is about Kamloops? Because Kamloops is going to get wiped off the map. There is no narrative. There is no narrative where we move forward and Kamloops is spared. It doesn't take a fucking genius to figure this out. Temperatures are record-breaking in the Kamloops area. Wildfires have constantly surrounded Kamloops. They have already claimed smaller communities. They will claim other communities. And if it's not the wildfires, it will be the floods. When Kamloops is wiped off the map, will we then begin to take this seriously? Doubtful. Very, very doubtful. We have to surround the halls of power. We have no other option. These people are psychopaths who do not care about the concept of human life. They don't care at all. They live to destroy. Like, we've got to get to a place where we actually understand this. They live to kill. That's what they're here to do. They don't care if the place burns down as they die. That is actually what they want. They will smile big and say, oh good, I burnt down Kamloops. It will be their joy. They will consider it one of their greatest accomplishments. These people should be arrested and put on trial for the lies that they've told and for the destruction that they have wrought on the species. And the people who are saying otherwise are complicit. As simple as that. They are either complete and total delusional dunders, or they are complicit and should be put on trial with them. This movie, Don't Look Up, man, it's got me feeling spicy. I'm saying all the shit I've said before, and as I'm saying it, the images are popping into my head from that movie. Like, everyone needs to watch this movie because it creates a central understanding that when things are said, the locus of it is this. This is why they've been destroying artists. This is why they've defunded the arts. This is why they destroy artists. Because they can't have artists telling the truth. Because when artists tell the truth, it creates a central lotus for everyone to focus their philosophical and political understanding. That even if you didn't think climate change was real, for whatever reason, because you're a fucking delusional loser, right? You could at least find a lotus within this central understanding. Like, for real, this, if you don't watch this film, you're not going to understand. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I don't care. Find the Pirate Bay. Watch it. I don't care. Find the way to get it. Because for the first time in my life, anyone is kicking in the door and being like, hey, would you like reality? Here's some reality if you would like it. Like, we're such a deluded people. We're such a deluded people. And if all we do is sit back and let these psychopaths take over the planet and do what they want to do, we're going to get hit with that fucking comet. Like, the comet's coming. The comet's coming. It's going to take out Kamloops first. And we're all going to watch it happen. And then it's going to spread and it's going to get into the major cities. And we're all just going to watch it happen while they keep releasing articles saying, we need to be better prepared for the destruction that we are doing to ourselves. Like, and it's gotten obvious. And I think that's the thing that I really like about Don't Look Up. It makes it obvious. Like, you have to really be thick. Like, so thick that I'm surprised you're capable of writing or reading or talking. Like, that's how thick you've got to be to miss it after you watch this film. Like, it's obvious. Like literally as obvious as like a T-Rex standing in your bedroom. And you're just like, I'm going to go to sleep. Doop, 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 doop. Good night, Mr. T-Rex, who is not there, I guess. Like, I just don't know what to say anymore about this subject, right? Like it's gotten childishly obvious what's happening. Like, childishly obvious. And there's just no reason to defend it anymore. Like, who are the people who are still defending this system? I mean, we know who they are. They publish in the National Post, right? But like the insane delusion and the insanity of it, which is absolutely brilliantly captured by Tyler Perry and Cate Blanchett, do a fucking amazing job. They play like the media people, right? They're essentially the media in this movie. And Tyler Perry especially is just like they don't care. They're not taking it seriously. They don't report on it as if it's serious. Everything is wrapped in this sickly sweetness and jokes and keeping things light, right? Constantly keeping things light. And how do you keep things light in an apocalypse, right? It's just a must watch. It's just a must watch. Like you have to. And conservative Premier Mo sides with big oil campaign, ignores the climate crisis, right? So Scott Moe is, of course, the Saskatchewan Premier, right? According to a report by the CCPA, Regina City Council's proposed an amendment that would add fossil fuel companies to the list of industries that cannot advertise with or sponsor City Regina events or buildings. This was alongside other industries such as cannabis, tobacco, and weapons manufacturing. I mean, that's a good, but he issues a public statement, right? It's passed an absurd motion that would restrict energy companies from sponsoring or advertising with the City of Regina, right? I commend the other people for voting against this. Like, these kinds of tweets will be compiled in a book that we might as well title The Delusional Losers of the Apocalypse. Right? Like, why do people go to work? Like, why is anybody doing any of this shit? Why is anyone actually participating in this nonsense anymore? Like, what we're doing is fucking nonsense. Like, from the start to the finish. There's no, like, reform of it. There's no reform of any of this. How do you reform this level of insanity? Right? The culture that's producing this level of insanity, it needs to be completely washed away. Just an absurdist Dadaism must come and just cleanse these lands of these absolute total fucking losers. Like, Scott Moe, the idea that the premier of any province or anywhere is denying reality on this scale is devastating to the culture of Canada. We are losers. Enormous, high-scale, high-level losers. Yeah, people like their toys. People like their cells. People don't need breathable air or drinkable water or livable lands, right? And you're touching on it, Matthias, right? What is being asked of the populace really? What is actually being asked of the populace, right? We're not even asking people to, we're not asking people to take their time and go to war. We're not asking people to do any of that. We're literally saying, take your toys, put them in the toy box until we can figure this out. That's literally what we're saying. And we just can't do it. We're just not capable. As a species. I am beginning to seriously ask the question, are we supposed to destroy ourselves? Are we supposed to destroy ourselves? Is there something embedded in our genetic code? Is there something embedded in the quantum energy that we are? Have we been created by this creative force specifically in order to do this to ourselves? Is this as unavoidable as that? Is this just intrinsically who we are as a species? Are we supposed to destroy ourselves? Because it looks to me like the answer is yes. Just it looks that way. If I was an alien species looking down on humanity, the question that I would be asking is, why the fuck are they blowing themselves up? They know they're doing it. They have all the evidence. It's right there. The people who have studied it have said that that's what's happening. Their artists are now making movies about it. It's obvious. And they're still doing it. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck? We're probably like the most popular television show in the intergalactic, nations, right? We're probably considered this lowbrow. There's probably a television show on intergalactic cable called Dead End Species, right? Because the way evolution is, right? It's just a random bag of generation, right? It's just a guy shaking a bag. And there has to be dead end. There has to be dead end species, right? That's how evolution works. Is that there are species that continue through the timeline, and there are species that break off and diverge and die off. And sometimes that break off happens, and they're the ones that continue on, right? Are we a dead end species? right? And there'd be this intergalactic show called Dead End Species, and the alien would be like, look how far along these losers have gotten. Ha ha! Wow! They made it through an industrial age, nuclear power, they're even sending rockets into space, and yet they're gonna end up a dead end species. Like, that's Earth. That's humanity. To a T. From start to finish. Someone should make a movie, right? That's all about this idea of how an intergalactic community actually views Earth. And if we're not just the butt of this ridiculous joke where we destroy ourselves and everybody goes, ha! They destroyed themselves? Losers! Then fuck that. Like, we are not graceful. We are not elegant. We are not powerful. We're not smart. We're not intelligent. We can't even figure how to not blow ourselves up. And the reason why we're blowing ourselves up is so that we can go, ha 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 in front of a flickering screen. Like, that's how easy it is to destroy humanity, right? That if an alien species wants to destroy humanity, all it would need to do is put a glittering light in front of it. And it'll just blow itself up. We're so pathetic. Like, we're real low level. Real low level. Like, go as low as you think is low, and then recognize that we are far lower than that. Did you watch Don't Look Up? I did. Today's video was about Don't Look Up. I've been talking about Don't Look Up. I won't go through it again, but if you don't watch Don't Look Up, I don't trust your opinion on culture. That's where I'm at. Like, probably the most important film that has been made in America. Period. Like, it says so much. It is now the central lotus of communication. You won't be able to avoid it, and if you do avoid it, you will look stupid. Scott Moe, no, more like Scott No, thank you. Yeah. I think it's just an overshoot cycle with a chance of extinction. I don't know if I understand you, Adam, honestly. An overshoot cycle. Like, we've reached for something new and we overshot it, and now we're gonna like decline, but there's a chance of an extinction event on that. Don't worry about that, garden mice. There's so much going on. Any intelligent life that ever visited us realized the trajectory we were on and said, oh, they're gonna take care of themselves. Exactly. Why haven't aliens visited us? Well, why would you? Like, if you were new in the neighborhood, or if you were like visiting a neighborhood and you were walking down the street and you were like, let's go meet the neighbors, and you approached their house and you heard people like screaming at one another, gunshots going off, right? Maybe like the top floor is just like playing like heavy metal rock music and people are screaming. Like, as you approach, a television gets thrown out of one of the windows. You gonna knock on that door? Like, why haven't aliens visited us? What are you talking about? We're like the backwater like nation. Like, it doesn't get more backwater than us. Like, we genuinely would be better off if we acted like bears act. If we were just like chilling out in the wilderness, you know, just sitting around, eating honey, right? You know, looking at one another and being like, oh, you get out here. You get out here. Yeah, that's right, you get out of here. Going fishing, eating shit. That would be a better society than this one. By a lot. By a lot. By a significant amount. Because at least then we're not destroying ourselves completely. At least then we're actually attempting to live in, like, the natural world. Attempting to acknowledge that reality is. Yeah, why don't people visit Mudflap, Alabama? Exactly. Even though that's a great name. Mudflap, Alabama? Are you kidding me? What's the population of Mudflap, Alabama? Hold on. Is this not a place? Did you just make up a place? Looks like. It's okay, dude. It sounds like a real place. And like, this is the absurdism that's unfolding, right? Like, and everything now is just absurdism. And 2000, go to college or you'll be flipping burgers. 2008, what do you mean you can't find a job? Is flipping burgers too good for you? 2016, you want $15 an hour for flipping burgers? Millennials are so entitled. 2021, why does no one want to flip burgers anymore? Like, it's getting obvious. And as it's getting obvious, there's this small dwindling group of losers who are so self-entitled and so just inside their own brain that they can't even acknowledge that, like, reality exists at all. Like, it's amazing that they can find their shoes. And yet, they're voting. They're voting conservative and they're voting liberal. Yeah, by 2050, we'll need 3 Earths worth of resources, overshoot limits to growth. This is why I keep saying we need to just stop. Like, we just need to stop, right? Like, that's what's so maddening about this whole thing, right? Like, in Don't Look Up, the comet coming towards them is like a natural inevitability, right? They can't avoid that. And they're trying to create an analogy to climate change, which is successful, in my view. But there are differences, of course. It's not a perfect allegory. And one of the major differences is that it's not an inevitability, right? We don't need to, like, launch a project. We don't need to, like, do a big fucking thing. We literally just need to stop doing what we're doing. That, like, imagine if you just stopped polluting and the comet stopped coming at you, right? And the less you pollute, and then the comet will actually retract and just go away, right? Like, this is the height of our delusion, that we just simply can't even contemplate the idea. It's just not even in the conversation. We're just not even having the conversation, and maybe we should just stop. If you have that conversation with anyone, it's like, no, whoa, what are you talking about? You can't just stop, right? Like, you can't just whoa. You wanna kill the economy? Yes, I want to kill the economy. I want this economy to be dead. Like, I would like it if a vampire would die. Yes, I would be a big fan of that. Like, and yet, people, you can still go buy LOL dolls. Right? I was talking to someone just on Sunday, where I go to my capitalist job, right? And I'm talking to a guy. It's like, and I talked to a little girl, right? She's like 8. I'm like, oh, hey, do you have a Merry Christmas? And she's like, yeah, I got a bunch of LOL dolls. And I really had to just, like, bite my tongue, and I was just like, oh, because I didn't want to fucking say to a little girl, like, oh, hey, your father is the problem. Like, stop. Why are these even on the market? Like, what is going on? What is going on? Gonna go watch this Don't Look Up movie myself soon. Yeah, do it tonight. I don't even care if you leave this chat and go do it. Like, it is the most important movie ever made in America, period. Like, it's actually bringing to the forefront actual problems that seriously need to be addressed. And it's doing it in a way that is extremely understandable. Like, very, very difficult for me. And like, I can see the people who would walk out of the theater being like, wait, why did they do, like, why? I don't understand. But at least it puts a spike in your brain. You too can take advantage of generational market inflation if you just work hard enough and stop buying coffee. Don't forget about that avocado toast. It's going to be hilarious when all of these people want to sell their houses. Well, and the narrative always was like, well, they're going to sell their houses and they're not going to be able to sell their houses to anybody. But it's like, yeah, they're selling it to a billionaire class who is buying up all the land. Don't Look Up sounds like Melancholia 2011. I thought we were blaming avocados. Yeah. Melancholia 2011? Melancholia. Nope. All right, I'm gonna with Kirsten Dunst. All right, I'm gonna leave that to the side. We'll see. Because I will happily watch anything that is like Don't Look Up. Like this needs to be the new culture. Like fuck all of this other stuff. Fuck all of it. All the superhero shit. All of this trash that's being produced just so we can look at it and be like, wow, yeah, like he's a small city farmer and he became the hero of the galaxy. Like fuck all of that, all of it. Like like Disney, all of that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like I hope that people look back on that period of time, like the superhero Drek, and are just like cringy about it. That's what I hope. I hope people are just like, oh, I can't believe that we all liked that. Oh, because it's garbage. It's all garbage. ANCAP macht free. Marvel comic garbage ruined cinema. Well, it didn't ruin cinema. It just isn't cinema. I completely agree with Scorsese. Scorsese's just like, this isn't cinema, right? It's like a roller coaster ride. It's like, yeah, that's exactly right. The characters are useless. They don't grow. They're one-dimensional the entire time. Any growth they experience is just a shifting of their power away from like selling weapons to being the weapon. Like that's literally Tony Stark's entire growth throughout the entire series, is that he grows from selling weapons to being the weapon. That's it, right? And the self-enforced justification of the use of violence by these guys, right? The like total veneration of empire. All of their villains are basically just cartoonified racist figures. Everything is like if you watch those Marvel movies and that's what you watch in terms of like your understanding of world history or events, you're fucking worse than illiterate. Like, you're worse than illiterate. And there are people who are definitely like that. Superhero. Yeah, I didn't know there was a Spider-Man movie until a few days ago. Superhero movies are the bell-bottoms of this era. Yeah. And people really like that new Spider-Man movie because they get all the old Spider-Men together and they do like but like, people are so willing to accept complete dreck. Like, just the worst shit you've ever seen. And people are like... Because, like, someone actually described to me Spider-Man, No Way Home, or whatever it's called, right? Yeah, let's do another Spider-Man. And someone describes it to me, and they're describing it to me like, they're like, it was a good film, I really liked it. And I literally... Like, there's a moment where the protagonist, Peter Parker... Everybody knows that he's Spider-Man now and it's ruining his life. And so he goes, and he knows it, everybody knows it because Mysterio outed him in a previous movie or whatever, right? And you can go, so he goes to Doctor Strange, right? A wizard, and says, hey, can I make it so everyone forgets who I am? Right? And Doctor Strange is like, everyone will forget who you are, Peter Parker. So, like, all the stuff you've done with Mary Jane and all that kind of stuff, that's going to be and no one will know who you are. It'll be a real problem for you, right? And the whole time he's describing this to me, I'm like, why didn't he just ask for everyone to forget about Mysterio? Like, why didn't he just ask for everybody to forget that he was Spider-Man? Why not get everyone to, why not ask to get everyone to forget Spider-Man? Like, why is Peter Parker asking this wizard, hey, make everybody forget Peter Parker, instead of, hey, make everybody forget Mysterio, Spider-Man, the event that led to my uncovering? And why isn't Doctor Strange being like, yeah, I could make people forget Peter Parker, but I could also make them forget, like, and so it's just like this point in the storytelling where I'm like, there is literally, in Marvel movies, there is never a single person in the process whose job it is to say, like, this is a major storytelling flaw. Like, this is a major flaw in your storytelling. And the opinion of these Marvel movies really is, whatever. Like, they don't care. Marxist analysis of the superhero genre is interesting. What material conditions cause people to search out fantasy heroes? Abandonment. Like, people want escapism. Like, they want escapism. And escapism has been around since forever. Like, I used to be really like poo-poo about escapism generally, until I listened to Neil Gaiman talk about escapism. And Neil Gaiman really created a case for why escapism is not only okay, but also important. Because people escape into an alternate reality, a universe that is not their own, and they might be able to find solutions to problems that exist in their own reality through this process of escape. And then he said a line that has stuck with me and completely changed my view of escapism. He said, the only people who don't want others to escape are jailers. And I was just like, and so people want to escape in the first place, right? And given the heightened nature of this reality, it's the fucking apocalypse, right? People are more prone to pursue escapism. And the superhero genre is perfect for it, right? It is just straight out, like, power fantasies, right? And also, like, we are constantly and perpetually in pursuit of superpowers, right? Oh, bro, you got to try this new thing. The new Xbox 53, the new iPhone 28, right? Yeah, this time they removed the speakers, you know, like this kind of fucking ridiculous nonsense where, like, it's always the next piece of tech. There's always you'll never believe this thing that changes everything. How many times have you actually heard that? How many times have you heard, like, here's a new piece of tech that changes everything? We here at Caltech 4839 H29483 are going to release the Go Mechatron. He comes out and does your dishes for you, then pats you on the head and calls you a good boy. Doesn't that make you feel good? Right? Like, it's... And once you understand that this constant perpetual drive towards what's new, this changes everything, is actually just like the pursuit of superpowers, right? Something like Alexa, for example, Google Home, right, is a type of superpower, right? Just being able to say, like, Alexa, what's the temperature like in Nebraska? And just have somebody be like, the temperature in Nebraska is 50 bar, right? It's a superpower. You've got, like, a little, like, Navi-style creature. You've got a little, like, fairy that's just, like, floating there all the time. And you just ask them things. And it'll just be like, here you go. And if it's connected to your system, it'd be like, can you dim the lights 53%? Right? It's a superpower. Right? And I've seen videos where people are even connecting Alexa to certain sound effects. So you literally can just go, like, remember the clapper? And something will happen in your house. Or you can just say, like, Alexa version 3, and something will happen in your house. And so we're literally creating a method for people to... We're literally... Stop waking my Alexa. That's funny. That's funny. That the idea I could, like, make your Alexa do stuff. That's great. Anyway, but you're creating an environment where you have elevated powers, right? If you're in your own house and you've got one of these devices, right? You can get things set up so that when you get into your house, not only is this your sanctuary, but you also have superpowers, right? You're a special type of being in your own environment. You're elevated above what you're possible of doing in public or in other people's spaces. And so there's this constant pursuit, not only to improve your material conditions, but to have the material, the items and the technology actually infuse and intersect with who you are as a person to elevate you to a superhuman level. right? And in this mad pursuit for superpowers, which all of us are interested in, we are all interested in it, right? Well, we have lost sight of what the fuck is going on in our normal everyday life. And the reason why we reach out to superheroes is because we perceive ourselves as on the same trajectory that they are on, right? And if you are a person who is exclusively motivated in the pursuit of superpowers, then you look at someone like Captain America or Tony Stark or Thor or any of these guys as something to be looked up to. That, oh, if only I had these resources, or oh, if only I had that, I could also be a superhero. And if I was a superhero, then people would really respect me and listen to me, right? Like, we've tied our entire ethos, our entire who we are as a species, who we self-identify as just fledgling heroes. Right? And we're just going to keep grinding away at that. We'll level up until eventually we become the heroes we were always meant to be. And then once you actually unpack all of this, you really realize that this is some like high-level Nazi fascist shit. This idea that we are all our own individual heroes living on our own individual journey, and we just need to pursue our heroism, and that's what's going to be. Right? Some real like American exceptionalism, Nazi propaganda bullshit, right? But it works, and it works for a very specific reason. Humans are not that smart. We're easy to trick. We're very gullible, especially when it comes to believing myths about ourselves. That if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, we're just like weird little monkeys who are trying to kind of figure out how to live calm little normal lives, you compare that to like, you're the hero of your narrative, you're the author of your fate, you can manifest a world around you that will make everyone else in awe. And what happens? Well, the people who believe this and are actually successful at it, which is an inevitability, right? If 100,000 people try it, one person will succeed, right? Well, then that person gets to stand around and say of everybody else, either, oh, you just need to manifest your own destiny, you guys are doing it wrong, or to the people who attempted to manifest their destiny and failed, well, you're just worse than me. Which is literally what they say. Like, that's literally what they say. Either, oh, you need to manifest your destiny better, or believe that you can manifest your own destiny in spite of all of the evidence. And to the people who tried it and failed, oh, that just means you were worse than I was, right? Obviously, there's a hierarchy. I'm the best. It's meritocracy, right? These extraordinary delusions that we fall into. And, like, you just listen to Oprah talk about it, for God's sakes. Like, Oprah's the epitome of this shit. Of just, like, yeah, I tried it and I did it and I worked hard at it and I was successful. Well, where the fuck is Ricky Lake? Where the fuck is Donahue? Like, where the fuck are all the same people who are doing the same thing that you were doing? Oh, is it just because it's a fucking inevitability? That should a bunch of people try, someone will succeed? Like, but we're so caught up in our own self-inflation and our own self-arrogance and our self-aggrandizement. And because the people who are successful, inevitably, are so convinced of their own self-importance, they speak with a conviction, right? That only the deluded can speak with. Anyway. Alexa, turn out the lights! I hope that did something to you, grinning. Yeah, what? This is weird. This is weird. Somebody put, why'd the military budget go up? We're not at war. This will be the first Christmas in 20 years the United States is not at war. I find this really odd. This is circulating, the idea that America is not at war. America is very much at war. Like it's very much at war. Like it's still in Iraq. What it's doing in Ukraine right now is obviously war. Literally like funneling arms into neo-Nazi groups so that they can continue bombing Ukraine, threatening on the Ukrainian Russian border. Wise choice, Grinning. Wise choice. Well done. And yet people really do believe that, oh, America's not at war anymore. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Anyway. This is from Scott Santens. If you don't know Scott Santens, he is a very central figure to the basic income movement. He's one of the, I'd call him intellectual, intelligentsia, let's say, on the inside of the basic income movement. Many of the same people enjoying more than $1,000 a month in passive income throughout all of 2020 believe that recurring monthly stimulus relief survival checks would somehow be a bad idea. As if the reason people receive income fundamentally changes its ability to pay for food. As MLK said, the wealthy who own securities have always had an assured income. Everyone who inherits wealth gets something for nothing. Every kid with a trust fund feels economic security. Passive income has always served the rich. It's time for everyone else to have it too. And more, as we're learning about, as we're recovering from this religious ideology of neoliberalism and actually beginning to investigate in actual economics, we're beginning to see that, state secure systems, right? Systems that are secured by the state and are stabilized by the state are actually better than private interests and the chaos brings order nature of the free market capitalism, right? Why? Because that's what creates an economy. If you give money to people who then buy food, and the people you buy the food from then use that money to buy shoes, and those people who bought the shoes from turn around and blah, 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 and all the way around, and then all of that money receives taxation, then it goes back to the central source to be redistributed, you have a real economy, right? You have an actual economy where things are actually happening. Until all of that money funnels into an offshore account somewhere, right? So we are actually relearning as a people what an economy actually is, what an economy is for, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the financial sector, the housing market, or any of this kind of shit. And once you recognize that, you can really respect the first world for what it is, which is just a series of grifts. We're just a series, the student loan system is a grift. It always was. It was designed to be a grift, specifically to pilfer money from children, people who literally couldn't defend themselves if they wanted to. A couple of years ago, I helped a friend fix a heater in a house that had chickens running in and out of the door. I sometimes wonder how much of this pop culture is really reaching everyone as we assume. Well, and that's why there's the divide onward, right? There's a pretty major divide going on, in my view, between people who are at least capable of using technology, right? And people who have no fucking idea what's going on. Today, I interacted with a 75-year-old woman. Think about this. Here's something to really think about. I was talking to a lady today who was telling me that she kept getting documents, but that her landlord is breaking into her apartment and stealing the documents. That's what she's telling me. And so I kept saying, well, why don't you take a picture? She's got a phone. Take a picture of it and send it to someone. And she looks at me and she says, I don't know how to do that. And so I sit down with her for about a half hour and I go through the process of teaching her. She knows how to take a picture. How do you send a picture to someone on your phone? She simply didn't know. She didn't know that she could do this. And I showed her, I wrote her a little card to give her the step-by-step how to do that. But for you and me, how do you send a picture on your phone? What are you talking about? You have the picture on your phone, you hit the little button, it brings up a thing, you hit it again, you hit send. Right? It's easy, it's intuitive, it's right in front of your face. Not if you're a 75-year-old woman. Right? And there's probably hundreds of thousands of people like this. Right? Where we just assume like, oh yeah, technology, all that kind of stuff has always been around. No, not really. No, not really. Right? Like this is how you create like a Tower of Babel situation. Right? The Tower of Babel is a biblical story about a people who decide to build a tower so tall that it reaches heaven. And in doing so, they'll prove their greatness. And as the story goes, God sees what they're doing and changes their languages so they can't communicate with one another. And so the project fails. But really what I think that this story is articulating is that when you create these kinds of large-scale projects in your society, you inevitably create a class of citizenry who will begin to communicate with one another in such a way so that anybody on the outside of it will not understand what's being said. And you think about technobabble is a good way of talking about it, right? Like, if a bunch of coders are together and they're talking with one another about what it is they do, even though they're speaking English, what they're saying is incomprehensible to an outsider, right? Like, and we are creating not only new languages, right, regularly, we are creating new ways to communicate those languages, new technologies, and by which we communicate with one another. And it's completely possible to leave huge segments of the populace behind in the dust who are just not part of it. And the best that we say to these people is, oh, just keep up. Fuck you. Like, fuck you. Like, and so we are going to undergo like a Tower of Babel moment where we won't be able to communicate with one another. I was talking to my father just the other day, and he was saying that his aunt, Aunt Ida, right? She lamented the introduction of a lot of this technology because she said it used to be that if I wanted to throw like a potluck dinner for my church, right, that I could pick up a phone book and I could dial those numbers and I would connect with people, or at least an answering machine, inviting them to this event. And a lot of people came. It was a big thing. And then cell phones came in, and there's no phone book. There's no way to connect to any of these people. I don't know how to communicate with them. I don't know how to gather it. And you know what happened? That church potluck failed. Completely canceled. A community event that the community wanted to have, that the community participated in, and because of the introduction of cell phones and the abolition of these phone books, and nobody can connect with one another, nobody knows how to connect with one another. I never pick up my phone. It's always a scammer anyway, right? Has the technology actually helped us? Are we better off? Or are we like the people in the story of the Tower of Babel, where we're now speaking completely different languages with tools that are not helping us communicate whatsoever? I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think every single apartment and house should be mandated to have a landline telephone installed in it. Just like we've got a fridge, right? Just like we've got base appliances, every house should have a landline phone in it. And that should be mandated, and it should be funded by the government itself. And we should have a fucking phone book. Because no one knows how to talk to one another or communicate with one another anymore. And that's a huge, massive problem. Like a massive social problem. And the reason why such a policy will never actually be put forward is because the psychopath class isn't interested in it. Doesn't make money for billionaires. I'm a ubiquitous capture guy. I use the Echo to capture shopping lists and notes that get written into my journal. It's not perfect, but it works with my ADHD. You got to do what you got. If any group captures 51% of the value created in a society, they will be elevated to economic godhood eventually. Yeah. It was eye-opening. I thought about that house for weeks. It reminds me of Brave New World, where people are split apart into different human species classes. In some ways, that has happened. I completely agree. I actually do completely agree. Like, if you don't have a computer or a device that connects to the internet, if you don't have it, then you are living in a different reality. And if you do have a computer, you are living in a different reality. You are. Like, and there's no sense denying it. Like, there's no sense pretending like that's not happening. Like, we are creating a false version of reality. Or maybe I'll say it nicer, right? We are escaping to a collectively created consciousness that is the internet. And if you don't have access to these technologies, then you're not part of that, right? And it's just kind of madness layered upon madness, if you ask me. You see different levels of this. I left Facebook in 2013. I'm totally out of the loop. Well, Facebook itself is just trash, honestly. Like, when I found out fairly recently that Facebook... Did you know that on Facebook, if you hit the little anger emoji, if you're all like, about something, that's 5 times... That gets weighted 5 times more powerfully than any other emoji. So if you give it a like, right? If we give it a like or a heart, right? Or even like a sad face, it's worth 1. If you give it an anger, it's worth 5. Like, you're going to end up with aberrations. You're going to end up with things that, and honestly, you're going to end up with things that are not reflective of the general attitude of the public. That's what's the most important, right? Is that if the whole idea of like this sharing, social sharing thing, if the entire idea is to actually spread around things that the populace actually believes, well, if you've weighted certain things differently embedded within the algorithm, then that's no longer true. And it can't be true. Right? So Facebook is false on the face of it. The US still has a hookworm problem. It takes a $10 of medication to cure it. Regarding the landlines, they don't do that. Did we used to? I don't know if I understand, Major. Sorry. They don't do that. I say a lot of things, bud. I say a lot of things. I feel like we're seeing a shift where people realize it's not just that Kellogg's is terrible or that Amazon it's terrible, but that this whole capitalist system is dehumanizing, harmful, and needs to go. Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, right, Tinker? Isn't that hilarious? Trudeau blames the real left for him not being popular. Yeah. Like, I loved it when he said that it's, the right, the people who, deny the science, don't think climate change is real, are full of neo-Nazis who threw gravel at me, personally. Those guys are fine. It's these leftists. These guys that are standing up and telling the truth about what's happening in the world. These guys that keep bringing up the fact that I wear blackface. The guys that keep saying I'm just raising emissions and reading cue cards. These guys are the real problem. This guy can get fucking bent. This guy can get fucking totally bent. Trudeau is a fucking loser. Like, he's a fucking loser. The reason why he's okay with right-wingers is because he is a right-winger. The reason, like, for fuck's sake, the dude is walking around in his 30s wearing blackface singing Deo. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, if people who are still supporting this guy are just the biggest losers ever. Like, just the most simping, like, the Elon Musk boys, man. Like, the Elon Musk boys are better than the fucking people who are still voting liberal. Like, at least they have some, like, vision and promise of greatness, right? Like, what's Trudeau got? Trudeau's got fucking nothing. Like, fucking nothing. Some good news. Russian hockey team wore nostalgic CCCP jerseys. Too bad they lost. Oh, yeah. Isn't that life? Isn't that life? There does seem to be a lot of nostalgia going on in Russia right now. So, interesting times. I will never vote Liberal ever again thanks to Trudeau and Freeland. Yeah, like, I understand why people went with Trudeau in the first election, right? Because Trudeau brought like a fresh energy and he acknowledged a lot of things, right? And that acknowledgement at the time was enough. It was enough that there was simply a leader acknowledging the reality of climate change. And Trudeau made some big promises that he lied about, right? Like he lied, he was a very effective grifter and a very effective liar. And so effective that I understand why people would fall for the grift, right? Even I, at the time, was like, oh, I don't know, let's give this guy a chance, right? Like, it seems okay. But it was all just grifting. I didn't vote Liberal, but I understood why people did. And I still understand why people do. The second time around, again, I thought I wouldn't vote Liberal. I'm telling people not to vote Liberal. When the blackface scandal broke, it was pretty clear that a lot of people jumped ship. They went from their majority position to a minority position, right? By the time this last election came around, I'm like, why is anybody voting Liberal? I don't understand it. Like I'm yet to see the cogent argument. Is it just because like she-cession? Is it just because? And then, you know, and the more I think about it, the more I really do realize like, oh, like the pandemic really showed us how stupid Canadians are and like gullible. The word is gullible. And once you realize that, like once you see how gullible Canadians are and how like to get anything across in meaningful, serious ways, you really gotta you gotta take a hammer and you just gotta hammer it in their heads. Like there's no other way to deal with it. And so that makes this outcome make a little bit more sense. But if this next election that's coming up, like you're voting Liberal, fucking why? Like fucking why? Why on God's green earth would you ever vote Liberal for any reason whatsoever? Right? It's just delusional madness at this point. Sorry to go back to this, but what you said earlier about our destiny reminded me of an article I read a couple of months ago from that Richard Heinberg guy I recommended a couple of weeks ago or so. We may be designed by evolution itself to overshoot natural limits and then crash land with almost inconceivable levels of destruction to the natural world and to humanity itself. Well, if you take a look, I don't like doing this, but if you take a look at the natural world, it seems like there are systems in the natural world that operate exactly that way, right? That if you just leave forests alone, well, they burn down pretty regularly, right? Wildfires, like it's built into the structure of the forest system that it will just burn down. The idea of like creating sustainability, like, is that just a fantasy? The natural world itself doesn't do that, right? The natural world itself doesn't live in stability and harmony. There are like forest fires and shit that are part of the conversation, right? So like, we may be designed by evolution itself to overshoot natural limits and then crash land with almost inconceivable levels of destruction. Yeah. Yeah, the bunny lynx cycle. I know what you're talking about with that. Where like bunny's life, like if they spike up, lynx life, the population of the lynx grows too, and then the bunnies spike down and the lynx goes down too, right? And lynx are like on an S curve like this, and bunnies are on like a big spike kind of curve. Not a curve at all, but and like we don't really observe humanity in the same way that we observe, you know, bunnies and lynx, right? We like to believe that we can just grow forever. And like we've said that. Like that's the thing that's the most embarrassing, is that people have actually stood up in our society and said, we can grow forever. And people have been like, yeah, that's a normal thing for a normal person to say. You're definitely a scientist and an economist, right? Yeah, it's completely normal for a rational man of science, an economist, to stand up and say out loud in front of everyone, including his peers, that it is possible for evolved apes to grow forever ad nauseum. And anytime they encounter anything that contradicts that idea, they call it an externality. Right? Like, this is some embarrassing shit. And this is what I love about the National Post's the Capitalist Manifesto. This seems to have been a complete and total flop. It genuinely looks like no one gives a shit, right? Like the Capitalist Manifesto has come out. I'm not seeing anyone even bothering to attempt to talk about this, because it's so outside the realm of rationality. That these people are lunatics. Like, all they're doing is affirming that they are a lunatic fringe that cannot actually discuss the conversation seriously. Right? Here we go. I knew it. Conrad Black on invincibility of capitalism and reestablishing America's place in the world. Make America great again, baby. Or like when they do confront, like, look, here's a guy, Terence Corcoran, on why capitalists need to answer Piketty. Certainly not Marx, right? Certainly not Richard Wolff, right? Piketty. Because Piketty is pretty, the world's most dangerous socialist. What a joke. Piketty is pretty, like, light, right? Like, he's well-researched, but he's essentially a Keynesian economist, right? His bottom line is, yeah, billionaires should pay like a 1% tax. That's his bottom line, right? And so if you establish that this guy's the world's most dangerous, and of course they show Milton Friedman, like the architect for the Chilean torture camps and shit, like the economist behind Pinochet, right? Like literally the economist behind Pinochet, totally fucking normal. Completely normal. Completely normal. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. Like, Piketty's, he's a Keynesian. He just asserts and reaffirms that which I can never pronounce his name without saying Keynesian. That the Keynesians already established, right? Like, he's just restating it. He's not the most dangerous capitalist. Yeah, if it's so great, why do they always need to tell us how great it is? Yeah. Well, and my thing is, if it's so great, then why are you so scared? Like, why you've done something called the Capitalist Manifesto, which is obviously a riff on the Communist Manifesto, and yet all you can do, either you lie about it, like this. Here's how it keeps lifting millions out of poverty. Either you tell outright, overt, grifting lies that are easily falsifiable, right? Or you just pretend as though the largest villains or the greatest antagonists are people who are just calling for basic reforms, right? Like, if you're so confident, if capitalism is invincible. Right? If capitalism is so invincible, why can't you talk about communism? Like, why can't you talk about Marx? Like, if Marxism is so easy to push over, then do it. But they're cowards, naturally, total frauds, illiterates, total illiterates. This why free speech must be protected at all costs is an illiterate rant. Like, it's a terrifyingly illiterate rant. And it's shocking that any of these would be published in a national paper. Like, it's shocking that any single one of these would be published in a national paper. The idea that they're publishing it together in like a collective kind of group is stunning. And no one seems to care about it at all. Because why would we? Like, that's the thing. It's like, no one's clapping back on this. Because it's so overt how obviously fraudulent this shit is. Here's my favorite, for example, right? Sean Spear, capitalism's vulnerabilities still persist. He just admits it. Conrad Black, on invincibility of capitalism. Right? The Titanic will never sink. Like, I really do need to, like, print these out and, like, get them collected into some kind of collection. Because in 5 years, probably less, but 5 years, these are going to stand as incoherent ramblings and rants. Have a good one, Onward. Good to see you, bud. I need to delve a little bit deeper into this, into these guys. Maybe take a swing at that tomorrow. Oh, sorry about that. I mean, they don't mandate phone lines into homes. I was so surprised this isn't a thing because your idea concerning mandating is very good. No, there's no mandate for it. Like, there's no mandate for it, and like we're no longer supporting it really. Like, even as landlines become, well, and because, like, landlines are also being taken over by just trash, right? Like, just robocalling, like, all this kind of stuff. And we don't even attempt to prevent any of that. So, like, we're so disincentivized to actually get landline phones. And yeah, the whole system is fucked, honestly. The whole system is fucked. So I wanted to point this out. One of my regulars has created a website. It's forthefuture.ca. It's about the basic income. Looks like there's a lot of great basic income sites and stuff going on with this. So I just wanted to show it to people. If you care about the basic income, one of my regular commentators creating all kinds of fun stuff. Oh yeah, let's get into COVID-19. COVID-19. Honestly, nothing much to report. Honestly, cases are going up at the predictable rate that had been already predicted, but it looks like the vaccine is holding. So 5 deaths. People have been pointing out that that this Omicron variant kills less people than the flu did. So, like, anyway, so that's all that really needs to be said, honestly. Yeah, I love this. Like, NBC News. Millennials may not be having kids or getting married right now, but this generation is investing in home ownership.